Every process has inputs and outputs. Let's say you're throwing a birthday party and you decide to bake a cake. You have to input the ingredients, the time and effort, your muscle power, and the heat from the oven. The result you get is a beautiful cake, and that eventually outputs into the mouths of your guests as they eat it excitedly. That might be a bit of a silly example, but it shows that everything involves inputs and outputs when you really break it down. The same is true of systems in the natural world, ones that involve the movement of matter and energy. Matter is the physical stuff the universe is made from, stuff you can touch and feel. This is like the ingredients for the cake. Energy has lots of different definitions, but perhaps the simplest one to understand is that energy is the resources required to do any kind of work. This is like the energy in your body that you use to stir the cake mixture, and the heat energy that the oven provides as it bakes. In the natural world, there are lots of transfers of matter and energy as well. In this lesson, we're going to look at one particular process in the natural world and what inputs and outputs it has in terms of matter and energy. That process is called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is where a plant takes light from the sun, water from the soil, and carbon dioxide from the air, and turns it into two things: glucose, which it uses for energy, and oxygen, which it releases into the air. This is basically how plants get food. They make it through the process of photosynthesis. It's the reason that plants continue to exist. So, what are the matter and energy changes in photosynthesis? Well, let's look at the inputs and outputs. The inputs for photosynthesis are light, which is energy, water, which is matter, and carbon dioxide, which is also matter. Physics tells us that matter and energy are really the same thing in different forms, so those matter and energy inputs could lead to any combination of matter and energy outputs. Matter and energy is neither created nor destroyed, so it all has to go somewhere. One of the main places it goes is into the plant itself. Photosynthesis produces energy in the form of glucose sugar, which the plant uses to replace dying cells and build new ones to help it grow. But not all the inputs stay inside the plant. There are also direct outputs. As well as glucose, photosynthesis produces oxygen, which is released back into the air. This is the main output of a plant. You can summarize the inputs and outputs of photosynthesis using a chemical equation. Nobody lives forever, and that goes for plants too. When plants die, they fall to the earth and begin to rot. As they rot, the matter that they absorbed during their lives is re-released into the environment. That matter can be decomposed by bacteria and absorbed by fungi. Once it decomposes, those nutrients are in the soil for the next generation of plants. So, matter and energy don't really go anywhere. They only move from one place to another. Every process in the world has inputs and outputs. That's true of natural processes that involve matter and energy as well. There will be matter and energy inputs and matter and energy outputs. Matter and energy are really part of the same thing and are never created or destroyed. They only move from place to place. Photosynthesis is the process where plants create the food to allow them to live. That process has inputs and outputs too. The inputs of photosynthesis are light energy and matter in the form of water absorbed through the roots and carbon dioxide absorbed through the leaves. Photosynthesis also has matter and energy outputs. The main outputs are oxygen, which is released into the air, and glucose sugar, a chemical energy, which is used to keep the plant alive. This happens by replacing dead cells and creating new ones to allow the plant to grow larger and continue to live. When a plant dies, its entire mass and remaining energy becomes an output into the environment. The plant rots away, and its nutrients are decomposed and absorbed by bacteria and fungi. This produces nutrient-rich soil, which feeds the future generations of plants.